So hello everybody and welcome. Welcome. I always prepare to come here and then I don't look at my notes because I just like talk, Usually I share what I feel is particularly intense with me because I'm just part of the whole, right? And when I was preparing the connection for today, that is between the head and the heart, right? You can see even physiologically what that means, right? It's the intellect. And anybody here who thinks too much? Right? Right? And the heart, which is our innocence, our beauty, and the softness and the receptivity of who we are. And I never prepare for anything as preparing as such. I prepare while I'm in the grocery store or I may be cleaning. Thoughts come to me and I always keep a pad and then I just write it down. Life is just, for me, just, everything, right? And so I don't prepare as such. But over the last several weeks, for me, I felt an intense, almost like, right, preventing, if you will, the flow between the head and the heart. Now, I've had this over the years and then it went away because essentially patterns come off in layers as we become more conscious, right? And of course, one door opens into another door and into another door. And so in the last several weeks, I felt quite an intensity and I could feel my solar plexus clenching and my wrists clenching. And I go, oh yeah, I know what's going on. It's the body releasing all the memory. And so the discomfort becomes almost like graceful. So I just wanted to share that with you. I always talk quite a bit about myself because I know that me is reflected in all of us, right? So I think you've noticed, has life gone crazy? Right? Yes. It just feels pretty challenging, right? To even stay in a space of grace and to stay focused and to stay centered. So as I was ready to come here, I heard the words that we are transforming our carbon bodies, this is carbon, right, into crystalline. Right, now you may have heard this before, and I have too, but I had not remembered it until this afternoon when I was just glancing, at what we were going to do this evening, that these carbon bodies, which was kind of a dense consciousness, right, is, as the light is coming in, is being transformed, changing form into crystalline bodies, which is a crystalline body filled with light and filled with grace. So as the light comes in and it hits onto these dense structures, because the body is a vessel, right? It's an electrical system, we are bound to feel those discomforts. And I felt like, oh yeah, I forgot that carbon, and we noticed this in the thinking as well. Some old thinking that needs to be transformed, changing form to thinking for the benefit of all, right? It's not just all about me anymore, though of course me remains very important, It's not just about me. And more on that later because things are moving through our energy fields. And as we clear something, we clear it for the benefit of all. But I want to go way beyond words. I usually do. And at the end of our program, I always do a process. You guys remember that? I always do an energy mastery process whereby I use the method that I developed, which is the energy mastery method, to address something that's really challenging, and nobody needs to know what it is, only in the quiet space of your own heart, right? And I facilitate the process so you can begin to find an openness into what is difficult, usually an emotion or a situation, and then finding that even just this process that we're going to do begins to make it lighter, right? Because we all have the imprints. I think the Hindu traditions call it samskaras, right? It is imprints of our thoughts and our emotions that have come down frequently, generationally speaking, right? You did not create your suffering, right? I did not either, but we sure are the ones that have to heal it. Right? We're okay with that? We're okay with that? Well, we have to be okay with that. So essentially that's what we're about this evening. Just wanted you to know a little bit of kind of shameless promoting as well, that always, and I think most people know that, I give the best that I can in the time that we have available. To some of us here, that may feel enough, right? To some of us, if you feel that you want to go deeper into your process and expand your life experiences, we're facilitating our very first retreat in Sedona. And I am so excited about it. I have, it's in October. When I say I have prepared, here again, I prepare in the grocery store. Wherever I am, something will come to me. Sedona is going to be a very special experience. I personally have been there. I checked out everything that's going to happen. And so if you feel called to join us in a very small group, like probably 10 people, please consider joining us in Sedona. Okay, and I think the handouts are either there or maybe Paula has given them to you. No, maybe she has not. I've just put it on the table there. I've also put on the table my mailing list if you want to stay in touch. I do a bunch of things, some of them free, because I enjoy the participation of I call it a tele-circle, yeah? and people call in from all over the country, sometimes from all over the world as well. We've had people from Germany, from Austria, from India. And I do that maybe kind of quarterly, depends when the mood takes me, kind of thing. And so if you want to participate, that is always free. Okay. So now that we know what we're going to do this evening, welcome again, and let us begin. I always joke, if you don't hear from me, which I haven't been here actually since last, I think it was the last open house, that was September, that means I'm deep into my own stuff, right? Because like everybody else, I do my stuff. I have to do my stuff. I don't profess to be, an enlightened being, but I have, put in considerable amounts, if you will, of delight to help me to be as useful as I can be. So the plan for today is to offer you, I don't want to say a new way, but maybe an expanded way, or maybe a different perspective, because there really is nothing new. is to offer you today a deeper perspective into processing your emotions. Okay? You know, it's kind of a dirty word, isn't it? Emotions. Because we don't like emotions. You know, they kind of are annoying, right? They come at times where we don't want them to come, right? And even wonderful feelings are sometimes like, you know, waiting for the other shoe to drop kind of thing, right? And so that's what we're going to do this evening. I only put things out when I have thoroughly worked with it myself. And like everybody else, I always need support with emotions, right? If you look at the mind, body, spirit continuum, you know, the spiritual body, the mental body, the emotional body, the physical body, there is a continuum that runs through us, through what I call the pranic tube. Pranic tube being your central nervous system, the spiritual equivalent, if you will, of your central nervous system, where the energy flows through and through the chakras into the ground, right? And that is, it's actually as simple as that, although it's not as simple as that. It is actually that we are conduits and vessels for the sacred energy to move through us. And of course, we all offer many resistances, do we not? Right? And it is the resistances that eventually cause the stagnations, the imprints, and the conditions of ill health. Right? I've worked with people with many health challenges. And I usually find out where's the emotional component, right, that feeds the symptom, right? So emotions for me, although I address the entire mind, body, spirit, and emotions, my special focus is mostly on the emotions, because I find if the emotions are clearer, the whole passage flows a lot better. Okay, so we're going to work with the emotions, and as I was driving here, still preparing as I'm driving here, the word that the head and the heart need to be joined in holy matrimony, right? And I go like, holy matrimony. Right, joining the head and the heart. Most of us function almost exclusively from the head, right? Controlling. Anybody who's a control freak here? No, no. Right. And what does it truly mean to release an outcome? Right? I've certainly worked with wanting to release an outcome. Surrender is the word, right? And then grabbing it right back, right? Because we don't have enough trust. But of course, that actually gets better as we get a little bit more spiritually mature, and as the head and the heart begin to join in holy matrimony, right? Incidentally, look at where the head and the heart, it needs to come through the throat, right? And I also noticed over the last several months that my thyroid was running a little bit slow, right? And thyroid is the master gland. And if there's a lot of stagnation going on in that interaction between the head and the heart, right? The throat is going to be the place where it shows up. The thyroid is actually the master gland, right? And so most of us have neck problems, right? Or if not severe, at least we have shoulders that hurt, right? So that passage between the head and the heart is absolutely vital. Not that we're done when that is connected, but then we're able to ground ourselves into the earth, right? When I look at people's auras, right, the colors of the chakras are reflected in the aura. What's in the chakras is also in the aura. So reading people's auras, it's interesting to see most of us have the stagnation. Well, pretty much everywhere there is a stagnation, but the biggest stagnation is the heart chakra, right? The heart chakra that we are just challenged to feel. To feel. We much rather think our way out of things, which of course, does not bring us comfort, right? Brings us a lot of sleepless nights as well. So we're going to see how our emotions and the love of self, like everything, depends. And for years and years, I've been in private practice for probably about 30 years, and when I lived in London before I came here, so I don't know, probably given how old I am, probably been in practice. I was a hypnotherapist when I still lived in London for many, many years. And the consistent obstacle was always, what does that mean to love yourself? To me, at least, it seemed, what does that mean? Could somebody please explain what does that mean? Would you agree with that? I used to think it was like, well, maybe go and have a massage or something, right? But that's just, of course, baby step number one. So I want to help us today to really get in touch with the aspects of our being that have been hurt, rejected, criticized, judged, right? I call it almost the default program, right? When something happens, have you ever noticed yourself going back to the default program? It's got to be my fault, right? And taking a look at what is familiar and what is foreign in the way we respond to life. Let's say a challenge happens. Where do we go to? What's familiar, right? Familiar is the response. It's got to be my fault. Sometimes it happens that it has to be this person's fault, like your fault, right? Usually it's a significant person in our lives, which is a projection, when the mechanism of energy is quickly, you point towards the other person. But that's the same thing. Have you noticed that? Right, that happens in relationship, is, well, how did that get to be my fault? Right? Frequently when I don't work with couples, but when I get the individual spouses, they say like, Lydia, could you explain to me? And they explain the story, like, could you could this be my fault? Because the mechanism, if it's unexamined, it is the same as blaming ourselves, but it just goes out, usually to one specific other person. And frequently, it's a significant other person, right? But that's kind of a little bit of a different story. So for today, we're going to really stay focused on ourselves, right? And so we are masters, so hopefully I know that we are becoming more masterful, right? There is no specific outcome. This is just a whole life experience. But what I have noticed is as I practice what I'm going to share with you today, is that my awareness around creativity and manifestation is expanding. And expanding in amazing ways. And you know something, if nothing else, wow, right? Let's have something that I can benefit from and that others can also benefit from. Wouldn't you say? Yeah. It's just a very important part of the sacred journey. Becoming a divine alchemist, right? Mixing, what is it? Lead into gold, right? Dropping the samskaras or the shadow, just another word, into the heart of the universe. So, because shadow or inner child or wounded child or many words to say the same thing essentially is light that has forgotten itself, right? So there is no, in the old paradigm there was like this good and bad, right? Well, in the new paradigm, the shadow or the inner child or the wounded child essentially is the shadow that has forgotten that it is light, right? And so our work is to escort you back into the light, right? If you picture the shadow just as a little crying child, i.e. you, me, sitting in a corner, right, having been severely judged and criticized and abused, and many of you know me here. I have had all of these experiences, so I speak from the heart on this. So that little shadow essentially has forgotten, right, that it is light, and it needs to be escorted back into the light, rather than judged more and criticized and for so many of us, those things are the default, right? It's so quick that we don't pay attention that this is actually a living little being, this inner child, if you will, that all it wants is to reach to the light and being loved and escorted back to the light. Just makes me cry sometimes, that we needed a garment of flesh, right? This garment of flesh to walk through life and to have all these experiences, to remember our divinity, and to remember that we are masters, right? So we needed this body of flesh, right? And sometimes when I'm going through dense spaces myself, I tend to think like, oh gosh, I would have made this so much easier, why do we need these dense flesh bodies to learn all this, right? Of course, there's so much more to it, to reach into your grace and into your divinity of on this sacred journey to become essentially what we already are. Isn't that interesting? To become what we already are. Yeah. So hopefully I can offer a little help this evening on connecting with the emotions in a deeper way. You've heard the word, you got to own your feelings, right? I don't know about you, but I did not really understand what that meant, owning my feelings. Well, sure, I'm owning my feelings, but I still don't want them, right? And so I'm going to offer you in a practical way to reconnect with your feelings. And just for what we are doing this evening, I have put together just a few little practical things for us to do together. That little inner child, by the way, many words, wounded child, inner child, shadow, the repressed aspect of our being, the self-judgment, the self-criticism, etc., etc. She or he runs the show. I'm going to say that again. She or he runs the show, right? It's almost like that inner child has been so accustomed to being hurt and abused or ignored. For me, ignored, in certainly in later years, ignored, that he or she has decided, if you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm just going to ruin your life. I'll show up when you don't want me. I'll show up and just rain on your parade, right? And I heard somebody say recently, what if our emotions, right, were kind of last judgment day, and they would be there and they would be asked, so what is your experience of them, you, me, the body you lived in? What is your experience of them? And so the shadow would say, well, every time I showed up, right, they did some Reiki on me to make me go away, right? Or they ignored me, or they drank some wine, or they went to have a session somewhere to get rid of me, right? And they never wanted to acknowledge my power and my strength. And that really set me thinking. I thought, isn't that interesting? How these unhealed emotions or shadows will show up simply when we don't want them, right? And it's almost like, I'll show up when you don't want me, okay? And I just ruin your life. Because you know what? I no longer trust you. You probably go and do some spiritual teaching somewhere, especially for those of us here. We find yet another spiritual practice. Yeah, I'm certainly guilty of that. Go to another lecture. Oh, okay, now I got it. But we just have never really looked and acknowledged and loved the parts of our beings that became the shadow, just waiting to be escorted back into the light. Okay. Are we together so far? Okay. Sometimes a little bit difficult, right? Because our shadow is kind of like, okay, you don't want to look at me? I don't want to look at you. I'll just show up when you don't want me, right? Until one day, hopefully, you're going to notice me. And then, hopefully, we can be together. And this is what we're going to do to introduce this evening and further down, of course, in my work, in my private practice, and also, of course, in Sedona. Every time that the title of my work is called Master Your Energy, but then the subtitle is always different. I mean, some of you may know that, right? Because it just depends. There's so much going on that in each chakra there is a different message. So my titles are always Master Your Energy, and then the subtitle today, it is about self-love. Next week it would be different. Okay? Well, feels like bad weather out there. So embracing the shadow is truly our path to freedom, right? Rather than forging ahead towards your ambitions, rather than forging ahead towards what you think the end result should be, right? The first and foremost thing that most of us have never done because we're so busy trying to make things happen, right? Because we feel there's all this pressure going on, but really not a whole lot can happen in the outer world until this little one is on board, because what does she own? What does she have? Just feel inside yourself, what does she have? Creativity? Yes? Why is that? Yes. Healing power from the heart. Yeah. Grace, because she is your innocence. She is the sweetness. She is the God. She is the source energy within you. So shunning him or her is like putting a lid on your spirit, right? Remember that creativity and spirituality are the same, right? Your spirit expresses creatively, but what if he or she is depleted and sad, right? Because we have not honored, we have not taken the time to embrace her and to escort her back into the light. Yes? Okay. Before we, sometimes there's some difficult places to walk through together, as we expand ourselves. We have to visit the places that we would rather not. And the words I came up with, I want you to think right now of a default program, right, in your personal relationship that you go back to when something difficult happens, right? I'll give you a little example in my own life. That's always easy. There's plenty of them. I'm kind of technologically challenged, right? So something happens that I don't know what to do, right? Now, who doesn't know what to do? Isn't it that little inner wounded child, right? I can actually hear like, nobody there to help me, nobody here to hold me, nobody to help me. And so what is your default program that you go to? Almost like totally automatically, right? It usually involves some form of criticism. And that's what I want to help you with this evening. Are we clear? Are we on the same page? You sure? Because I want to know you're here. Okay, good, good. Remember, I know that you did not cause that pain, right? But you're the one, just like I'm the one, who has to heal it, right? So there's no blaming. We're done with all that. The people who raised us, our ancestry, they have a lot of, they contributed a lot, shall we say, right? I'm always fascinated by people's life stories, right? And by the responses that we give because of those life stories, right? And a lot of the time those responses are unconscious. I always know when I need a good example. I'm going to give you an example, right? Because examples are powerful, right? I have a close friendship in my life, approximately 20 years. With a friend, a woman friend. We truly are heart-centered friends. Talk a lot. She moved away. She moved to Arizona. And so, of course, we're still friends, but now we are phone friends, right? 3 hours on the phone, 4 hours on the phone, because we miss each other, right? Women will know what I'm talking about. And so recently she was visiting, and of course we got together. which is not enough, to make us both feel satisfied. And so she says, well, I'm driving back to Arizona. We can talk on the phone. Good, I said. So we start talking, expecting it to be 2 hours, 3 hours. So I said to her, hi, are you happy? I guess what I meant, are you happy having visited your family, having visited whatever? I just said, are you happy? It wasn't like, are you happy? It was like, are you happy? Her response to me still makes me feel kind of hot. Her response was, I've never heard a bad word ever out of her mouth. I don't like you asking me that. In fact, if you ever ask me that again, I will never speak to you again. It took me like 2 weeks to get over that, right? It took me 2 weeks to get over that. So it triggered, I don't know, I kind of know what I triggered in her. She doesn't want to look at her state of well-being right now, right? And so she reflected it back to me. And so that is not my pain. I don't need to take that on. So I'm sharing that with you because it is important, right? That, I have quite a bit of experience with processing emotions, but I felt handicapped by that, right? And I'm still processing that because it hurt, right? And so that inner child was hurt, and so, I have to work with her again. And I'm still working with her because I'm so willing, because I've noticed so much blossoming as I escort her back into the light, that we're not dependent on another person's judgment, right? To feel good about myself, right? The shadow, or that little inner child, will actually outsmart any tricks. Whatever tricks you have, pretending it doesn't exist, right? I don't know, having sex with a new lover, wonderful, nothing against that. This is what we do. A new lover is always welcome, right? To forget about our pain, right? Or an overeating experience, right? Or a restarting the addiction, right? All of these mechanisms, but the shadow will outsmart any tricks. He or she will not go away and literally will show up at the least convenient times. I just want to be seen. I just want to be loved. I just want to be escorted back to the light. Because if you think there is only light, right? The shadow is light. It just simply has forgotten that it is light. So it is up to us to embrace and to bring back the shadow into the light. And only you can do that. We can look for validation in other people, but nobody can do that for us. Okay? So would it be okay if we just do some repeat after me, if you would. It's just very brief to bring that first little morsel of grace. I have it right here. You don't have it written down. To bring that first little morsel of grace to that shadow and to invite it back into the light. Would that be okay? Okay. I welcome you in me now. Would you please? I welcome you in me now. I'm sorry if I have shunned you or ignored you. I'm sorry if I have shunned you or ignored you. I don't like feeling this way. I don't like feeling this way. I honor your power. I honor your power. Let's escort you back to the light. Let's escort you back to the light. There's a spiritual teacher on the internet by the name of Matt Kahn. And one of your handouts I took straight from him for you to practice. That's right, a second handout. Not the chakra one, the second one. For you, if you feel so guided, to practice surrendering on a daily basis, right? And if you feel so guided, those of you who want to come to the open house in September, that's what we're going to address, is to what does it feel like once the head and the heart come back together, right? Then there is the bigger surrender picture of I surrender any outcome, because the energy can just flow through you without getting all these, right? The energy can just flow through you, right? So back to our now embracing the shadow. Let's escort you back into the light. This particular spiritual teacher, if you feel that you have taken this specifically from his work, he suggests that we say the words, I love you. I love you. And there's probably nothing new about that, right? When we feel any of those feelings, default feelings, remember what we mean by default feelings, I love you. I honor your power. Let me escort you back to the light. So let's kind of feel what that feels like in our bodies, right? Why don't you bring into your awareness, because this is really easy, we all have a default feeling, right? Right? Something that is like automatic that we go to in judgment or criticism of ourselves. Just bring that feeling up quietly to yourself. Got it? And allow yourself, from the softness of your heart and the sweetness of your breath, to say just quietly, not even out loud, I love you. I honor your power. Let me escort you back into the light. Let me escort you back into the light. Do you feel that? Mm-hmm. Do you feel that? Like this little, oh, really? Oh. Let me escort you back to the light. I can feel that in you. Is that moving through you? Yeah. Yes, you can, can't you? I beg your pardon? That's okay. Uh-huh. Sometimes when I give talks, the energy goes to one person and it just happened to be you. It's totally confidential, you're fine. I love you. I honor your power. Let me escort you back into the light. You see all these little kids coming back, right? All these little wounded ones. Whenever I'm birthing deeper work, the universe kind of cooperates by showing me things, right? I looked at somebody's energy field the other day. That's nothing new. But I saw that when we release issues, old stuff, hurt, anger, pain, it leaves a field, but it can hang out like an echo, if you will, of a memory, right? In the quantum field of all possibilities, right? Everything is connected and there's layers and layers of energy. And if I may make a suggestion from my heart, I'm really actively working with that myself, that an old issue that we tend to think, right? Not that again, right? That it is very probable at this stage in the levels of consciousness that we are now stepping into, which is fifth dimensional consciousness, right? This is only an echo of a memory that has already been healed and that needs to be escorted out of your energy field on its return back to source. Do you want me to say that again? Yeah? The energy field has layers, okay? And in my private practice, people have said to me, Lydia, when is this going to go away? I go, well, actually, it is gone. You have to practice not giving it more power, right? And so when I had the awareness that when we have a feeling that's like, right, it's only an echo of what has already been healed. And here again, just wants to be escorted. It needs your tender, loving embrace so it can just leave into the field of all possibilities, which is quantum healing, back to source. Right? I have a sense that there's a substantial amount of recreation going on that we have contributed to. Right? So I hope this is a gift. It's actually something that I practice, like rather than, oh God, not that again, right? Oh, this is just an echo of a memory, of an old imprint that has already been healed, right? Let me escort you back to the light. Let me escort you back, right? To the light. Can you feel the difference in that? Yeah. Yeah. Now you could feel it, I could see it. Because we all have those, pet things, right? And once I could see that, it was really helpful to me because, I've got stuff too. It's like, oh, that again. But no, let me escort you back to the light. Just an echo, a reminder that it's already been healed and to escort it out of the field so it can go back to source. Right? And so whatever we do now is for the good of all. That's part of the fifth dimensional consciousness. We're not doing things just for myself, right? We're doing things, the healing, for the good of all, for the benefit of all, because we essentially share, the same, and people who kind of do things of the same interest, we tend to kind of vibrate all together, like birds of the feather kind of thing. So the healing that I do in my own private space affects all of you. In fact, it affects a group like here. Whatever you do affects, in fact, it affects all of creation, but more immediately people who vibrate in your own energy field, right? The people who you are with. And so we don't do anything just for ourselves anymore. We now do the processing for the good of all, right? Which it always was, but I feel that fifth dimensional consciousness is really making that more clear. So to lovingly escort it back to the light, to be cherished, embraced, and escorted back to the light. Do you feel that you can do that? Yes, yes. The many, many times that something comes up in the course of a day, right? Just to take one moment, 1 second, right? I honor your power. Let me escort you back to the light. It's like this little child sits there, right? And all it wants is to find its way home, right? So the time that we add layers to our suffering, I feel is or has come to a close, right? That's part of the carbon, shedding the carbon body, the denseness of the carbon body, and awakening to the crystalline energy of the crystal body, the body of light, the body of Christ, if you will. So many different ways of saying that, a body of light, body of Christ, right? The Christed one, which we all are in our heart, to remember the love, right? Endless years of discomfort can be shifted in a moment. Can be shifted in a moment. Even if you just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I just didn't know how to be with you. I'm sorry, I just didn't know. I was so busy forging ahead in my life, right? Getting things done, right? That I'm sorry, right? Please forgive me. I've had some little dialogues. In fact, I did that like 30 years ago, but now it's like a deeper layer comes up. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to listen to you, but now I will. Let's embrace you, escort you back to the light. And he or she may not quite trust you at first, right? That's just how it is. Like, oh yeah, I've heard that before, right? Right? Until some new man or new woman comes along, right? And you drag me around again, right? No, this is true, though. It's very true, especially with women. The amount of women that I've worked with who've said to me, Lydia, I should never have been with him. I could feel it wasn't right, right? And the suffering that relationship caused. So imagine that wounded child, like, oh, you're going to drag me around again, right? Told you. You were so uncomfortable, but, right? And so to really, really now listen, right? And embrace your shadow. Really nothing new about that, embracing your shadow. Yeah. And so one day you'll simply forget, sometimes people say to me, well, when is all this going to happen? Like, and I say, well, one day you're just going to forget how to be angry. One day you're just not going to know what it's like to be sad, but it will be such an easy, like, oh, I'm just feeling peace all the time, right? But there's not going to be like, this is when happiness is starting. It's just like one day you'll notice that all those triggers are no longer there, right? All those stumbling blocks are no longer there when all of you is on board, right? And stepping into fifth dimensional or unity consciousness. To the best that I can feel my way, because we've heard a lot about this fifth dimension, to the best of what I can feel, this is what is happening. The whole planet is going to go there. The whole planet is going to go there. Okay, because we're moving along, moving along. Okay. Do you feel that you're ready for a process? Yeah? Do you feel that you are ready for a difficult process? Nobody needs to know. I'm going to tell you the process that I feel I was given. Because we're gone pretty deep today, right? If you could bring into your awareness, if you don't want to do it, then just say, I don't want to do this, but just participate or pretend to participate. Okay, you'll know. You will know. I want to help you today to release the stagnation around the person or the experience in your life that hurt you the most. Could be, actually, I'm hearing a person's issue. The experience or the person that hurt you the most. It's not difficult, right? It's right there, right? Certainly with me it is. Is everybody on board with that? The experience or the person that hurt you the most. Okay? And as always with our processes, those of you who've never been here, I want you to bring into your awareness the so-called negativity, the shadow aspect of that, and that helps, then I can help clear that energy. And you're going to feel quite a few layers come off, right? And then you can continue with embracing it and escorting those little echoes, right, back to the light. Are we clear on that? Okay. So, uncross yourself, please. If you have hands crossed or legs crossed, because it's good to have. And I'd like you to bring into your awareness, please, the feelings associated with that experience, the person who hurt you the most, or the experience that you feel was the most detrimental to you. And if you would please keep your eyes closed, and you just focus on that. And we're going into the silence. And I will ask you to bring your attention back when you're ready, when we're ready. We're beginning right now. And if you can feel the energy weakening or your attention wavering, just bring it back again to as intense as you can. And you may bring your attention back. You may open your eyes and just breathe softly. You can let it go. You can let it go. And you may find that the issue is beginning to weaken. It's possible that you don't feel anything at all, but that you will notice the shifts a few hours or a few days from now. Or it is possible that you may notice something that seems totally unrelated, right? That the energy has attached itself to, that is diminishing and clearing. Right, so bring your attention fully back. And so, if that memory lingers, please remember your I'm sorry. Let me escort you back to the light, right? I did that for you. That's what the process did, right? And of course, now you are able to take that shadow and to just bring it back to the light. Yes? Good. Does anybody want to share anything? Yes, you may.
If you have questions or comments, I'll bring you the microphone.
Oh, sure. Sorry, Paula, I didn't see that.
How do you know when the imprint has truly been released and it's just the echoes, or when you haven't really had the faith to release it and it's not released?
I don't know if you're feeling it. It needs to be escorted back to the light. If you're feeling remnants, right? If it's the first time you visit an issue, it probably is not an echo, but it really doesn't matter. You're trying to use the head, right? If it's the first time you visit an issue, it probably is not an echo. If it's been with you for a long time, with lots of side issues, it's an echo, and just literally let me escort you back to the light. It's just memory, right? And we don't want to reinforce an old memory, do we? Right? So just bless it and escort it back to the light. Okay?
We have some questions for online. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So self-sabotage is the repressed shadow / inner child part of us trying to gain our attention, seeking to be reintegrated into our whole self.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen to that. That self-sabotage is such an ugly word, isn't it? Like, oh, doing it wrong again, right? Is to take that little shadow self that all it wants is to be integrated into the whole, W-H-O-L-E, right? And just to escort it back to the light. And thank you to the online person for that just wonderful, wonderful comment, yes.
Any other questions?
Okay. So as we wrap up our time together, I'm going to hang out, well, either there for a cookie or there as you leave this wonderful space. Just to remind you, our Sedona retreat, I have an article coming out in Natural Awakenings. I think it's the July issue, so just pick it up. I'll also put some Sedona things in the Quest bookstore pockets. If you have a question that kind of surfaces later on, you know where to find me. You can send me a little email, you can call me. I'm kind of close by, right? Theosophical is my home. And the handout I gave you on the chakras, I always give that same handout. It shows essentially where the sacred truths that want to be expressed through the chakras and what could possibly be covering up that sacred truth. So just by looking at the handout, let's say third chakra, since that's what we worked with today, self-esteem issues, right? The color is yellow, so you can focus on putting a beautiful yellow color on your solar plexus, right? In the heart center is green, forgiveness, and therefore the shadow is, of course, lack of forgiveness. What is the word? Lack of forgiveness, kind of wanting to pay back, you know, just, right? So if you have a moment during your meditation, just kind of look at the colors. That's the reason why I give you the handout, because all this lives inside of us, right? Our crowns are opening into the heavens, fifth dimensional consciousness. The first chakra is safety and security to ground us, right? We can't go anywhere unless we're grounded. And so just kind of sit with it, even if you don't fully, quote unquote, understand, just the picture will help you to open up the energy center, right? And the second handout I gave you, that was just for fun. I read that one twice a day and to help me to surrender, because ultimately, what the heck can we control, right? Nothing, right? So I accept that I cannot control whatever points I typed up are usually the points that I feel apply to most of us. I accept that I don't know why the heck I'm here. I accept I have no clue what I'm supposed to be doing with myself. So I call on the light of the universe to work through me on my behalf to bring the most fulfilling outcome for the benefit of all, right? It's kind of a relief when you do that, right? It's like, take so much off my shoulder. And this I've taken directly from Matt Kahn. He's a wonderful spiritual teacher. You can Google him. That's what, I have found very useful. So I share that with you. And to do that on a daily basis as part of your practice. And I see you at the open house in September or before, at whatever is happening, and hopefully beyond also. Are we done? And we are done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia.